Democrats lost big in the midterm elections, but you'd never know it listening to Barack Obama at the State of the Union last night. His speech was described as in-your-face, defiant, and upbeat. But perhaps the president himself summed it up best.
I have no more campaigns to run. My only agenda, I know because I won both of them.
All right, that attitude is not sitting well with many Republicans. To talk about this, we're joined by Sean Spicer. He's the communications director for the Republican National Committee. Hi, Sean.
Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, Sean. It seems pretty clear to me that the spirit of bipartisanship won't be shining in 2015.
I think we'd actually like it to. I think if you ask most Republicans, they want to get stuff done. But last night was somewhat divorced from reality. In 2009, when the president's party did well, he said elections have consequences. When we did very well, as you pointed out in the intro, he seems to sort of do the in-your-face, talk about veto threats. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go it alone. I'm going to sign executive orders. I think that he can speak about bipartisanship, and they're great platitudes, and it's a great speech when it comes to that. But at the end of the day, the reality is, do you want to reach across the aisle and work together? And I think there are some areas where we can do that, but the president's got to realize that it's not a one-way street. The Constitution lays out that there are equal branches of government that play a role in crafting our laws.
Well, it seems to me the tit for tat has already started because, as you know, Republican lawmakers reached out to Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, and asked him to address a joint session of Congress. They didn't bother to ask the president. As Dana Bash put it, it was meant as a poke in the eye to President Obama. So is this what we should expect the next 2 years, this tit for tat thing going on?
No, but I also don't think that the president can sign executive order after executive order, ignore Congress, go around Congress, and then when the speaker reaches out to have the prime minister address a joint session, which is within the prerogative of the Speaker of the House, the same way that he invited the president to come speak at the State of the Union, that somehow everyone gets all upset. So this is a little bit different. I mean, I haven't heard a lot of clamoring from the left and from the media about all of the president's executive actions on major policy issues. Inviting someone to give a speech to a joint session is a little not exactly on the same level.
Okay. Well, I'd like to ask you this, too, because CNN did a poll right after the president's speech about some of his plans to help the middle class. And I think that both parties agree that the middle class is hurting right now. And both sides desire to lift people out of poverty, right? Am I right about that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
you pointed it out in your op-ed. I think there's an agreement on that.
Absolutely. And I feel great about that. I think that's fantastic. So the CNN poll found that after the president's speech, 72% of respondents think the president's ideas will move the country in the right direction. In other words, they like the child care tax credits, they like the free community college, they like paid sick leave, and they like maternity leave. Even if you don't want to raise taxes on the wealthy to pay for these things, shouldn't Republicans also be addressing these things, because these are real problems that the middle class is grappling with? Do you know how much child care costs in this country?
I'm well aware of how much child care costs. I
sure you
live
do.
it every day. But what I think the difference is, is that the president wants a Washington-based solution for every problem. He wants to raise taxes and have Washington answer that. I think community colleges are a tremendous asset to our country, and there's many people who benefit from them, or a tech school versus going to a four-year school. Totally agree on that. I think the difference, whether it's alleviating poverty or getting people higher education through the higher education system, is the way we do it. The president wants to do everything based on Washington, based on higher taxes, a very old model where everything needs to be controlled. I think that we look at this as sort of, how do we grow the economy, how do we make people's wages go up, instead of trying to figure out how we have Washington solve things.
Because
to be honest with you, hold on.
Okay, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
No, I was just going to say, I think that when you tell people, would you like free community college, who's going to say no? Who's going to say, hey, the president, what's next year's State of the Union? Would you like free cable? I mean, no one's going to say no to that. I think that the problem is that it's not free. There is somebody, and those are called taxpayers, that pick up the bill. And when the president can go out and say, I propose the following free stuff, and he proposed free Obamacare, and everyone said, that's great. And then this year their premiums went up, they lost their doctor. I think that the problem is that it's a great sales job, but no one's explaining here are the consequences. It's like the fine print that people always complain about, that they get looped into on like an infomercial.
Well, let's talk about raising taxes on the wealthiest Americans in this country. Because, you know, Republicans often talk about Barack Obama being Robin Hood, right? Taking from the rich to feed the poor. That might not fly with many Americans these days, because you know what's trending on Twitter this morning? Rich people problems. They're mocking rich people, and here's why. Between 2009 and 2012, 95% of income gains went to the wealthiest 1%. And that's happened over a long period of time. I'll give you another stat. From 1979 until 2011, income for the bottom 20% of households rose 48%. But for the top 1%, it rose 200%. There's something wrong here that has to be fixed.
Well, there's three things that are wrong. I'll give you two stats. When Barack Obama took office, there was $10 trillion of debt in this country. There's now over $18 trillion of debt. When he got into office, he claimed it was unpatriotic to have $10 trillion because President Bush had seen $4 trillion increase during his time.
I think that when we don't have it,
and last year, hold on, in fairness, okay, fine, fair enough. Fair enough. I'll concede all of that. But here's the other point. Last year, we continued to see the highest amount of revenue come into the federal government. The problem I have is not that people should, I mean, no one wants to pay taxes, but we all acknowledge it as a reality of living in a free and amazing society that we live in. But the question I have is, before we continue to tax anybody, why aren't we looking at the revenue side and saying, wait a second, we're bringing in plenty of money, we're spending out of control, and no one wants to talk about this. The president didn't mention debt once last night.
I'm going to interrupt you.
About
I'm going to interrupt
reform.
you for the best reason. Yeah. Kevin McCarthy is now speaking about inviting Benjamin Netanyahu.
Moms and dads that
All
are
right,
having
we're
to work
going to jump
double
away and
shifts.
talk to Sean Spicer about what was just said. So Republicans are demonstrating that they've passed bills in the House of Representatives that the president has ignored. But still, in this climate, Sean, it just doesn't appear that there'll be much of a bipartisan spirit.
Well, I think that we're going to have to take a wait-and-see approach, okay? We just took over within the last few weeks the Senate. I think you're going to see House Republicans and Republican Senate try to pass things and move them to the Senate, to the president's desk. That will be the true test of this, Carol. I mean, at the end of the day, if he signs them into law, it's going to work. But I think that we can, I mean, you just heard Kevin McCarthy enumerate a couple of those areas where I think that we can work together and move things forward. I think that we're going to focus, you're going to see Republicans focus on job creation, on getting the economy moving, things like that, and move them over to the president's desk. It then becomes up to the president to decide whether he wants to sign them or whether or not. But if all the talk about bipartisan that was expressed last night is to come true, then I think the president needs to meet Republicans at least halfway and say, I will sign some of those bills, I'll work with you on areas. But there are plenty of areas where we do agree, and Kevin McCarthy talked about cybersecurity, but there's trade, there's some tax bills that have to do with allowing corporations to bring back tax money earned overseas and put back into the U.S. economy. That's an area where we could work together. But there's a long list of those. I think you're going to see the Republican Congress focus on those things first, and then the test will be, does the president actually want to live up to the rhetoric that he spoke about last night and sign them?
We'll see. Thanks so much, Sean Spicer, for being with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Carol.
I'll be right back.